It's about that time of day again. This is Joseph. It's Wednesday evening, February 1st, 2017. Welcome back to your nightly newsletter. We're covering crude oil, S&P, gold, euro, and FDAX this evening. Crude is bearish after the bulls appear to have taken profit after quite a wild reaction to this afternoon's FOMC announcement. The S&P is bearish with a flag pattern tonight, which tells us that sellers are focusing on traps above previous swings for the next leg lower. Gold, the yellow metal, is bullish and trading at a measured move after a perfect price V bottom off the 1200 round number ahead of today's FOMC announcement. Euro is bearish and trying to retest the low, but the buyers are coming off a strong reaction to the FOMC announcement this afternoon and have potential to take control if they can hold the next pullback. The FDAX is bearish and trying to fill the gap left open from last night's close, but a rising support trend line is standing in the way, which will give the bulls the opportunity to grab control if they can show us some strength tomorrow. Another great newsletter for you guys tonight. Boy, quite a wild ride today after the FOMC announcement. We had inventories on crude, the FOMC this afternoon. We were expecting a wild ride, and we definitely had a great day, though. Had a great day overall. You can't ask for much more than that. Some good volatility leading into the news here this afternoon. You know, it's always tough when it's dead asleep before the news, right? We get some great opportunities, though. Had a great day in the trade room. Hope you guys had a great day as well. Don't forget, before we jump into charts, though, tonight, I do want to remind you, the only place to watch the full-length version of this video is on our blog at Sideways Markets. If you're watching the video right now on our YouTube channel, it's only a small snippet on the YouTube channel. Not to worry. There's a link in the description of that YouTube video. Follow that link and come join me on the blog at Sideways Markets for the full-length version. While you're here, don't forget, join that mailing list. I'll send you an email every evening when the nightly newsletter goes live. Follow me on social. Got plenty of different ways to follow me on social media. I'm always posting charts and important updates throughout the day on my social media channels. Download those charts. Right below the video tonight, you'll see a link there to download today's charts. Have all the charts from tonight's video on your computer tomorrow. And of course, don't forget, you're going to learn more with me in 90 minutes on that free pass than you will anywhere else on the interwebs. If you're not a member yet, got a free pass for your upper right-hand corner. Come out and join me as a guest for a few days this week in the trade room. And please don't forget, if you're brand new here to the SOT community, a great frequently asked questions page. And of course, I'm always here standing by, right, to help you guys out. Use the live support tool on the right-hand side of the website if you got any questions. Holler at me anytime today, tomorrow, this weekend. I'll be standing by to help you guys out. Let's keep rolling here. FOMC day comes to an end. Let's jump in and see what we have here now on the economic news calendar for tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, being a Thursday, the second day of the month of February. Let's take a look here what we got going on tonight here. Anything important here tonight? Scroll all the way down. Nope, nothing come out of news in the overnight session. We'll go right into London tomorrow morning, and we don't have to wait very long here. We got 4:30 major news from Great Britain. The big news here, of course, will be the BOE announcement meeting minutes tomorrow at 7 a.m. Those will be the big headlining news numbers tomorrow. I would imagine the big news tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern time, my good friends in Great Britain. There's a lot going on there about the Brexit stuff right now. Big one step foot or one step closer to that Brexit going through today. And of course, I'm sure tomorrow's meeting minutes will definitely be on everyone's radar. If you're sticking around with me tomorrow, we open the trade room, of course, at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Tomorrow's a Thursday, so we got jobless claims at 8:30. What else we got? That's about it. Yeah, that's about it. So 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. you got your BOE announcement, right, and minutes, and of course 8:30 a.m. right, the jobless claims tomorrow morning. It's a kind of a wide open morning here for us in the trade room. Of course, we open up at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and we'll have that jobless claims coming out here. I'm sure tomorrow will be a little bit of a reactionary day to today's FOMC announcement. One thing to keep in mind out for tomorrow afternoon, we get some major news, as you can see, coming out of China tomorrow night, and then we're going to be going into Friday's non-farm payroll number, right? We get two big news events this week. FOMC was today at 2 o'clock, non-farm payrolls Friday at 8:30. So tomorrow afternoon, as we go into the afternoon session, be aware we're likely going to see a little bit lower volume as the traders get out of the way ahead of Friday's non-farm payrolls at 8:30 a.m. We'll talk about the non-farm payroll news and the strategy for that in tomorrow night's newsletter. In the meantime, 7 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. are the major news on the calendar for tomorrow. And again, be aware of that lower volume environment tomorrow afternoon as traders get out of the way ahead of Friday's major news here. All right, let's jump right in here this afternoon. We'll start with crude, S&P, gold, euro. A little bit of FDAX here to finish things up. Crude is bearish after the bulls appear to have taken profit after a wild reaction to this afternoon's FOMC announcement. The bulls had control for most of the session today, but the day finished on such a climactic note for the bulls, and we now expect to see the bears go hunting for a move back down to support levels waiting below. The key for tomorrow will be this rising trend line on the chart. Assuming this bearishness continues this move lower, we'll be cautious not to sell into that key area of support, looking for ways to sell high if and when we get there. The buyers, on the other hand, did have a very strong move this afternoon, but this collapse off the highs tells us we need to see some buyers showing some strength here right now before we go back and looking for a move up to retest last week's high. One of the most important things that we see on this chart tonight is going to be how the day began. The day started off here with a bull channel, right? The bull channel, of course, as we know, anytime we go back to the low of that channel, we know we want to be buying the low of that channel, right, and sending it back up to retest the high. That looks great, right? That's always the most reliable trade, buying the low of that bull channel. And we saw a few examples of that earlier on in this session. What really is interesting, though, is how the market reacted once they got back up to retest that high. This very kind of climactic push higher, and then, of course, just very obvious, the buyers just kind of walking away from it. This leads me to believe here right now, combine that with the 1, 2, and 3 measured move resistance, this leads me to believe here that we're going to see a little bit more pep from these buyers if we're going to be able to get people to want to buy into this measured move and after this big, strong move lower. As a seller right now, the bears are thinking, well, we got a little bit of space down here to get down to that rising support trend line. Let's now look for a buyer failure, right, and get this party running back to the downside. That support trend line obviously is going to be a key area, nice, easy, medium-term target. The final objective, clearly, though, for those bears would be to get back down to retest today's low, but they're going to have to get below that rising support trend line first, right, before that rising support trend line first, if they're going to have the opportunity here to keep selling as the price goes lower. So again, right now, this climactic feeling, right, to the market going higher, and then of course this feeling like the buyers completely taking profit at that high. They're back below the measured move. We got the most reliable buying opportunity coming off the low of that channel. Now the buyers have to show us that they really mean it. Bears looking for a seller failure for the move back down to that rising support trend line, then a breakout pullback below the rising support, create that as resistance now, right? Turn support into resistance, and we'll look for the move back to retest today's low. The buyers, on the other hand, though, they got to get back above this measured move. They got to get back above it, hold that pullback, and then we can start thinking about, right, being a buyer up to retest the prior week high, right? Don't forget, everything reset here because, of course, it's the first day of a new month, right? So new weekly highs, right? New monthly highs, and of course, 5408, right, is on our radar. If these buyers can show us that they really mean this, we've already seen a couple examples here of how the buyers ran it up and then kind of gave up on this thing right now. There is a trend line here, but this trend line is not going to be as strong as they would like it to be because of that, of course, right, break and retest that we found earlier. If you're a client of mine, we're definitely looking for a two-legged move down, so keep track, right, of those measured legs. Look for a new bear channel to be forming here as well. And again, really right now, I want to see those buyers fail so we can get to selling high without selling into that rising support trend line. Again, wait for these buyers to prove it. We're going right into that measured move right now. I want to make sure we stay patient on that. And again, the bears having control with such a strong move off that high, we're looking for these buyers to struggle so we can sell it back down again. Moving forward here now from the S&P to the E-mini. S&P is bearish with a flag pattern this evening, which tells us that sellers are focusing on traps above prior swings and at the same time giving the bulls a chance to take control if they can show us some strength tomorrow. That rising support trend line is key right now. The bears have control, but they don't want to sell into support, so they're being patient, taking trades off the highs, and then looking for the bottom to fall out of this so they can sell the breakout pullback below that no trade zone. The buyers, on the other hand, can easily take control. All they need, it might be easier said than done, all they need is to show some strength, right, which may be easy for the sellers to run out of bullets tomorrow. Basically, right now, we get a good example of a bear flag, right? Nice big strong move down after the big run up this morning. Then, of course, we see the channel develop here now, right? Channel rotation, draw that channel correctly. And basically, when you see a bear flag like this, we know that sellers are going to keep trying to pick off the tops, right? Pick off these highs. Now, the reason why they do this is because of this rising support trend line, right? The sellers aren't going to want to sell into this rising support, so they keep focused on, right, taking those sells off the highs. The reality, though, is that eventually those bears can possibly run out of bullets, and those bears trapped on the wrong side of the market, when they get out, can result in a nice big strong move higher. The buyers have to be waiting for that real strong move right now before we can call this a bull market. So as a seller right now, I'm keeping my eyes on the price above the highs of these prior swings, right? We'll call that 78 even, right? 77 3/4, whatever you want to call it. But the sellers are looking to sell high, so they don't sell into that rising support trend line coming up off the low. It's either that or they got to get back below that trend line, right? And then try to sell low, which is always going to be, right, the more difficult job to do unless, again, sell high, back off that, right, off the high, back down to that low. Very similar we talked about on crude oil. We don't want to sell into that support. What you really want to be careful about here is just a little tiny breakdown and go. I really want to see it really run, right? Really blow right through that low, get that moving average coming, right? And then we can start looking at, right, that selling opportunity to go down to the double down, the prior day low, right, and that measured move. The key is going to be, I don't want to sell the low unless we see some strength going through it. So bears, look to get up, bring it back down, right? Sell the high of that channel. As we go lower, careful of that little breakout, right? Little fake out breakout. Oftentimes, if it just barely comes up, it'll get sucked back in because bears aren't going to want to sell low. They need to see some strength to the downside. If it wants to be a bull market, we're going to have to see this thing really show some pep, right? Hold that pullback and get above, right? Get above the high of that channel, get above the battle zone, get above that 77 3/4, right? Again, eventually here, the sellers will keep selling, right? They'll keep selling, they'll keep selling, they'll keep selling. But if this thing really runs higher here, though, the bears are going to give up on this, and it will give way to the bulls taking profit, or the bulls taking control, and then we'll be able to have a nice, easy move going to the upside right now. So as of right now, as we are going higher here, we're not seeing any separation. We're not seeing any strength here to the upside. So we have to assume the bears are still in control and they're simply taking, right, they're cherry picking off the highs right now so they can avoid selling into that low. Keep an eye out for that large measured move, A, B, C, D. Keep an eye out for that large measured move on the way down, right? That obviously is a long-term objective, and we got to get through this low before we can get there tomorrow. Sell the high. Don't sell low unless it comes on strength. That'll be the rule of thumb here for the S&P sellers here tomorrow. Moving on now from the S&P to the gold, the yellow metal is bullish and trading at the measured move after a price V-bottomed off the 1200 round number ahead of today's FOMC announcement. And this is quite interesting of a chart this evening. The bulls have control, but you can clearly see how much stronger the bears were on the way down compared to how the bulls were on the way up, which tells us this may be nothing more than a pullback to allow the sellers to take it back down again. Now we can also see the bulls have a measured move right at the same location as the breakout point of the V bottom, which tells us that buyers will be looking for a strong push through the no trade zone for a continuation up to last week's high. But if they fail, this price can easily change hands and run back down to that 1200 big round number tomorrow. Boy, we talked about this in last night's newsletter. We were looking for a real strong move, right? Looking for those buyers to fail and a strong move down to know we were good to go to 1200. Yeah, we definitely got that strong move we talked about in last night's newsletter. And once you saw that strong move down, you knew it was go time down to that big round number. What is really impressive, though, is this complete V bottom off of that big round number. Now, the way that a V bottom works is that the point at which the V begins is now kind of the breakout point. And so if we want to get this price going higher here, it's got to get through this area right here, right? Kind of that no trade.